Bienvenue. Welcome once again to another live stream. This is with Stephanie Mitchell Hughes. We call this Resilience 2.0. Uh, Stephanie has been through what we would refer to as a number of hard places, including workplace bullying, mental health issues, and most importantly, of course, long COVID. And we've come out the other side, a number of lessons learned, but here we find ourselves at the tail end of Mental Health Awareness Month. And as such, there are a number of topics to talk about. We're going to be covering such things such as the NAMI walks. NAMI is we're going to talk about what NAMI is in a second. And we'll talk about the walk, the NAMI Franklin County walk on June the 7th. It's not just a walk, it's a call to action. But we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, because every step taken and every dollar raised, and this is a very important time to be doing those kind of activities, funds crucial programs, support services, and advocacy efforts, especially in the fight to protect access to, of course, Medicaid, which, as we all know, is under threat, which so many rely on for mental health care. So what we need to do, really, and I suppose this is our siren call, move from awareness to real change. But dare I say it, we're also encouraging you to find those dollars to try and help cushion the terrible blow that appears to be about to be inflicted upon us. But and we're going to talk about a couple of things. Why the walk, where the money's going. We'll talk a little bit more about Medicaid, about what part you can play in it, and also finally I'll do a rousing call to keep the momentum going. But first of all, welcome, Stephanie. Can you tell me a little bit about what is NAMI, and more importantly, what this walk is all about, and what the walks in general are about?
So NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And there are roughly 600 NAMI affiliates across the United States. And there are NAMI state affiliates and there are NAMI local affiliates. And so the spotlight affiliate that we're going to talk about today is NAMI Franklin County. NAMI stands, and I don't know if I said this, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Now, if you have heard of NAMI before, you will know that NAMI provides support in the form of support groups. We provide education in the form of education classes, and we also provide legislative advocacy on the state and federal level to ensure that people who have a mental health condition or individuals, family members, caregivers, partners who have a mental health condition, that they receive the support that they need in order to take care of themselves. It's just that simple. And so we do not charge, no NAMI charges for the services that are provided. But in order to function, and the unique thing about NAMI and NAMIs, we are not clinicians. We are peers, meaning we have a shared lived experience. And excuse me, sorry. Thank you. And so in order to raise money, one of the main fundraisers that most NAMIs do, it's known as a NAMI walk. And the money that is raised at a NAMI walk is used to fund the programs that we provide, the support groups that we provide, the additional types of training that we provide in the form of crisis intervention team, which is focused on educating law enforcement on how to respond to individuals with a mental health condition, mental health first aid, and Ending the Silence, which is a program that is presented in high schools and middle schools. And so those funds are used, the money raised at the NAMI Walk funds those services. We also teach classes and do what are known as family education seminars. And
Now,
so,
all of this effort
mhm.
is currently under threat.
Well, to a certain extent, and largely, it is. So we'll shift into the reason that this is now kind of at risk. So NAMIs are essentially, I call us the last castle standing. And so because many people, what folks may not know is that a lot of individuals across this country who have a mental health condition rely on Medicaid to take care of themselves and their mental health condition. And right now, what is happening across in Washington D.C. is in the federal government, the budget bill. There is at least at this point, it's all still proposed because it hasn't passed all of Congress yet. But last week, the House passed a budget bill um, with 8,800 or billion dollars. I said 8,800, $880 billion in Medicaid cuts.
Right.
And if those cuts are preserved, made part of the budget bill, then those cuts will impact individuals who receive Medicaid.
Right.
To take care of their health. And so just to kind of give some quantifiable examples, and people may be wondering, well, how in the world would this happen?
Right.
So through the Affordable Care Act, there was Medicaid expansion offered. There were some states, for whatever reason, who decided that they did not want Medicaid expansion. And so those states that did decide opt into Medicaid expansion, that meant that the people in those states who had need of Medicaid, including those with a mental health condition, had access to the care that they could get via the Medicaid program. In my state of Ohio, for example, there is a trigger, and some states have this same trigger. And the trigger is when Medicaid federal funding drops below 90%, then that Medicaid is cut. They could start to impose cuts. And as we have watched, the legislature in Ohio deal with its budget, Ohio state budget, these are the things that are real, very real threats and possibilities where things are being imposed in order for people to continue to receive Medicaid, et cetera, et cetera. This is not an issue of politics. It's an issue of fundamentally, what is it that people need in order to properly care for themselves? Because if people who have a mental health condition do not have access to Medicaid dollars, much of which can be used for prevention, if we have state, local agencies, county agencies who lose Medicaid funding, the loss of Medicaid funding would be devastating, because that would then mean that the people who they care for are not going to receive their services. And if
No.
people don't receive services from their local mental health agency because their agency has lost its access to Medicaid funding, then you're going to go to the place that is the last castle standing, i.e., NAMI, your local NAMI, your county NAMI, and to receive the types of services that we provide, which, because we are not clinicians, we don't provide therapy, we don't prescribe medication. We provide and facilitate support groups, we teach classes, and we have a number of prevention activities.
Yeah, but the trouble is, prevention activities, by its very nature, is stuff that you do in advance of an
Mhm.
intervention being needed, not
Mhm.
at the point where it's required. So, therefore, what you're doing is you're creating the perfect storm. You're removing access to content, pharmaceuticals, caregivers, clinicians, and therapists. You're
Mhm.
leaving people in the very capable hands of NAMI who aren't able to go to those areas, those places, and
Mhm.
deal with it. And I'm afraid it's going to be soft soap. It will, it may take the edge off being in a support group, but these people who could be anything from somebody having an anxiety episode, uh, to, all the way through to schizophrenia and on and on,
Mhm.
you could find
Well,
it. This sounds medieval.
Well, it is a very scary time because at NAMI at the national level, the various NAMIs around the country, we have worked hard to make the case about the necessity of Medicaid dollars and the importance of it. Because, see, at the end of the day, unfortunately, in this country, in the United States, we do not have the robust community mental health system that I believe was envisioned when then President John F. Kennedy signed an executive order requesting that state run mental health hospitals be closed. That was back in 1960. And it was those mental health hospitals where people who had a mental health condition like me could be shuttered away behind closed doors
Yeah, but
and
that was
subject to all
they were,
untold horrors.
but there were
Um,
hospitals in name only. There weren't hospitals
right.
where care was given. There were hospitals to shield the public, to prevent
Mhm,
the young women and swooning in public at the sight of people with mental health acting out. So
mhm,
that they were a sanatorium and little more. What we were expecting as a result of that, would there
mhm.
be care within the community, right?
Right. Like a supported, actual support network. But
Right.
what we have gotten instead, because we have not been able to implement that across the United States, what we have gotten are the mental health hospitals of last resort. And those are jails and prisons.
Those aren't hospitals,
Right.
though.
And jails and prisons are not intended to be mental health hospitals.
No, they're not
But
hospitals.
that
They're a
but
place
that is
to. They are a place. They are an advanced sanatorium. They're a
well, it's there
sanatorium
to
where.
to penalize people who have, I mean,
Right.
let's face it, many of whom have committed some extremely serious infractions, extremely serious. But we have, and we could have a whole program about why mental health hospitals are why prisons and jails should not be mental health hospitals. And I
Right.
think that the people who even run these spaces and are very familiar with what happens with individuals who have a mental health condition, who are behind and locked up in their facilities would agree they are not the space for it. But in the absence of the alternative, enough housing, enough group homes, enough of those things. If we just, people wind up someplace. And oftentimes those places are the spaces of last resort, which are prisons, jails. And who do we call upon? We call upon first responders who are servants that want to serve the members of the public and help people when they are in an emergency. But I don't think that they quite envisioned having to respond to mental health crises over and over and over again. So, in any event, I kind of want to loop it back around though. We at NAMI Franklin County and at other NAMIs around the country, we use those dollars that are from the walk and we
Right.
turn around and put them in to the programming for the people who call us, who are in need of support, who are in need of education and understanding what it means to have a mental health condition and how to help their loved one, or what it means to be even in recovery from a mental health condition. And we need those funds. And when you cut and you decimate safety nets with 880 billion dollars in cuts from health programs, then it's, you leave people who, if they have reached a place of recovery and they are working hard to take care of themselves, why would you cut the legs out from under them? Because then it just
Right.
causes people to spiral, and then it just continues. It's a cycle that just continues to go on, and it gets worse. We have been fortunate in Ohio for almost the last almost 8 years in
Right.
that the governor, Mike DeWine, who's the governor of Ohio, has been a huge, huge supporter of mental health care. And so there are things that people have been able to do. No one's out living large or being lavish, but there's work, really, really important work, and by extension, gains that have been made within the mental health community. And there are governors around the country who have tried to do much of the same thing. And so when you cut $880 billion out of the Medicaid fund, then what happens? The gains that we have made, we lose those things. And we just lose all of that. And so it's just really important. So what I want to urge people to do is, if you want to know more about the NAMI walk, then we've got the little post about it, or a little graphic
Well,
about the
we've got,
NAMI Franklin County walk.
okay, we can do that. I've got
It's
that
on
here.
it's on this, and this is about the Medicaid, Protect Medicaid. But the
Okay.
NAMI Franklin County walk
That's
is
this month.
scheduled for June the 7th. That is a Saturday, 2025. It will be in Columbus, Ohio. So if you're in Columbus, you need to go to the Scioto Abaddon Metro Park, which is a beautiful area filled with lots of nature and what have you. And the walk length is 2.5 miles, and registration begins at 8. And because at NAMI Franklin County, we believe in working hard, and we also believe in having a lot of fun. And so we will also have lots of fun at the walk. And our goal is $75,000. If you want to live in Franklin County and you want to support us, you can send a donation. You can support NAMI Franklin County without, participating in the walk. You can send a donation to the main office at 1225 Dublin Road, Suite 50, in Columbus. And so that information is there as well. And if you want to know more about the impact, the net adverse impact of the cuts in Medicaid, then I would encourage you to go to NAMI.org and look under advocacy. And so there's the Protect Medicaid graphic from NAMI.org up
Okay.
there.
Hang on a second. Let me just do that. There we
Okay,
go.
and yeah, Protect Medicaid and Protect Mental Health. Go there to learn more about the devastating impact of Medicaid cuts on individuals and by extension their caregivers, family members, and partners if they lose Medicaid funding. So
Right. Okay. It's such a ridiculous scenario to be in, but I do implore all of you to go to the NAMI Franklin County site. And before we wind it up for today, Stephanie, can you give any last words of advice to anyone who's feeling a little bit lost, maybe anxious in this run up to what potentially could be a devastating loss of Medicaid?
The thing, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I saw a post on, I think it was on Facebook, that said, what would you tell your 18-year-old self
Right.
today? And the thing that I would say is, yes, it's dark. Yes, it's devastating. Yes, there may be some harsh realities that are right at our doorstep. But what I would say is keep going. You will be all right. At the end of the day, we will be all right. We will live to fight another day because if nothing else, and I know this just from my own personal 46 years of in the trenches of living with depression and living with suicidal thinking, people who have a mental health condition are resilient.
Well,
So
it's
that's
amazing, actually. I think, speaking as a person who is ADHD and autistic, I think you either, when you have a condition and you're managing it, as I have been quite successfully. And by the way, as an autistic person, I want to tell all of you out there that Mr. Kennedy and his comments saying that the autistic children are the ones that are going to be left behind and I'll be the failures and all the rest of it. I know many autistic people who are captains of industry, who are highly successful athletes, who are brilliant at many things. I think you should take his comments with an enormous teaspoon of salt, because it's not the case. There are some autistic people who may struggle in society, but I would say for the vast majority, they will do well, if not better, than those who aren't, because they are single focused and absolutely on target.
Well, and this is the thing also, I'm going to quote the absolutely brilliant Dr. Temple Grandin, who said, I may be autistic, I'm different, I'm not less. And the same thing goes for having a mental health condition. Yes, I have a mental health condition, but I'm also a lawyer. I'm also a writer. I'm a speaker. I help a lot of people. I talk about the workplace. And there are many people who are like the both of us with different conditions who are out in the world contributing and helping other people. And I just, I just said this in a response to something completely different that a whole nother issue that a comment that I posted on LinkedIn last night. And I think that this principle is still applicable even here. In a world where we are so focused on materialism and money and how much excess of whatever we can have,
Yeah.
we have forgotten that you win with people.
We've forgotten our humanity.
Right, right. You win. At the end of the day, we win with people. You win with people.
And a win, or in your mind, that is without people, and my mind, is meaningless. It's the group that has to win together, not any individual person. Individual winnings disappear into the mist of time, except for sporting achievements, I know, but when you're talking about a win of a whole group of people, a whole tribe of people, that is quite different. That's resilient and lasts. And on that
Well,
note,
yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much, Stephanie. As ever, it's every day is a learning day. And Stephanie Mitchell Hughes is very much focused on uncovering and shining the light on the areas that need to be brought to the surface. And this ridiculous, I'm sorry, I'm calling it ridiculous reduction of Medicaid is one of those. But this NAMI walk, I think, is honorable. It's not just well-intentioned, but can actually achieve something. I'm afraid if you guys can dig into your pockets and find a few dollars, I always say dig down the back of the sofa, down by the couch. There's bound to be at least a $5 there somewhere. But if you pass that through, it all adds up. That goal is achievable. $75,000 really, in the real scheme of things, isn't that much. And if everybody contributed $5 or $10, we'd get there in no time. To all of you watching, what Stephanie said was very poignant, which is you will get through this. But I think you need to believe that you're going to get through this. I always say, there is light at the end of the tunnel, just as long as it's not an oncoming train. Until next week, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please do look after that mental health. Bye-bye.
Bye.